Well, it's the first Pittsburgh Postgame in about 4 months' time, and it's a victorious one for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds Soccer Club. I'm Matt Gajtka with John Krysinsky of Pittsburgh Soccer Now. Hounds win 3-1 down at Lynn Family Stadium. They open the new joint in Louisville with the result they've gotten used to against Louisville City FC. Despite Lou City's success in the league over the past 3 or 4 years, that's now 3 wins in a row for the Hounds in Louisville. They get goals from Jordan Dover, Robbie Mertz, and Anthony Velarde on their way to the win, starting the 2020 season about 4 months after we thought they were going to, John. But it was a burst. Right at the end of the first half, the Hounds didn't look good for the first half hour or so. After the hydration break, though, something changed there. We can talk about tactics in a bit, but overall, the Hounds snatched this one back from the boys in purple.
Absolutely. This was a good win to start the season, to start a very unusual season. It just, there was a certain level of, okay, they've given up that goal. They looked completely disorganized in the back. They couldn't string together passes. They were trying to get it to Papa Mensah, who I thought for 90 plus minutes, or actually for the 60 plus minutes he played, he was fantastic. Even when the rest of the team wasn't really well organized, he was still creating enough trouble for Louisville's back line that, where they had to respect that. But yeah, they were very disorganized, didn't look good. And Speedy Williams with a terrific shot from top of the box. Robert Morris alum, and he's just been doing his thing there in Louisville. You could see what sort of class quality player he is. And so they dug themselves in a hole, but they were there. They were hanging around, and they started to, even after they gave up the Williams goal, they started to get a little bit more organized defensively, and I think that helped. There was a little bit of calm. You could see the experience from like Gomez and goal. You could see the experience with Banky Azil kind of in the middle of that back line there. You could see Canard Oh Forbes every time he took a touch. It was like calming, everybody else around him kind of started to make their runs or started to, get into the space they needed to, because they knew Canardo would take that extra touch, that extra time, and could kind of get them reset. And so that's where it happened. The veteran leadership, I thought, really pulled them through today. And I think, then once, like you said, they had that hydration break. Bob Lilly is so good at in-game adjustments. I think today was a perfect example of that. And then, he's saying, I know he's probably was thinking all along, weeks and weeks leading into this match, I don't care if you're Louisville City. I don't care if you're Manchester City. I don't care if you're Liverpool this year. If you're playing your first match in 4 months, you're going to be shaky. And as good as Louisville City has been for the past 5 years, especially the last 3 or 4, playing the ball out of the back, the Hounds were going to take their shots, and they were going to try to high press, and they were going to try to punish Louisville. And they did that. They waited a while to do it. I will say, though, Mensah was pressing, and he wasn't getting the support. And then when it all came together, it was like a 1-2-3 punch, and Louisville City just didn't recover.
I think what really helped there, John, was the Hounds got a couple of restarts there, maybe a goal kick or a deep throw from Louisville, where they could press some bodies up and finally catch their breath in the last third of the first half, if you will. It culminated in that Jordan Dover goal. Canard Oh Forbes finally started to get some touches. He had 2 tremendous touches right before that Dover goal, including the cross in. And I do want to say, I think Mensah, for me, might be the man of the match. 22 years old. It felt like a pretty significant signing when the Hounds picked him up in the offseason. He had 6 goals for Nashville last year. He had 5 the previous season for Nashville before they made the jump to MLS. So 11 goals in 2 years in the USL Championship. Pretty good record, pretty good track record, especially for someone who's just coming out of his teenage years. And native of Ghana, I was impressed by his poise today in setting up the final 2 goals for the Hounds. Yes, Louisville was sloppy, and Pittsburgh was there to take advantage of it. He was the recipient of that early giveaway in the second half that led to the Mertz deflection goal. And then Mensah, I thought he could have panicked on that third goal scored by Velarde too, but he was confronted by the keeper, Lynn. He backed out a little bit, found a man on the back post, Velarde, And that's all she wrote there. Once the Hounds got the third goal, it felt like Louisville really sagged from there, and rightly so. So for me, it is Mensah as the man of the match in his first Riverhounds match at all. And John, also a guy who, in talking to some folks down in Louisville, had a reputation of not being in shape and ready to go at the start of the season. That was the main knock on him. It wasn't anything to do with his talent or his ability to read the play. It was more of a physical thing. Well, you mentioned he was subbed out in the 67th, I believe, but still a really productive 67 minutes, if so.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm with you. I mean, man of the match. I mean, Canard Oh Forbes is obviously I think in the last 20 minutes he was literally playing on the back line. I mean, maybe I don't know if that was intentional or if he was just drifting deeper, but he's the glue. He keeps that team together. So I look at him, and I obviously look at Mensah. And, Mensah's, as you said, 22 years old. The sky's the limit. You've got a guy who came off the bench. When you bring somebody on board and you tell them, this is your opportunity to be the man, that's going to be a motivating factor for a guy, I'm sure, with his talent and his ability at this level. And I think that we were anxious to see. We saw maybe, I think, a half of a match, maybe a little bit of training in February and late February and early March from him. We didn't really see him all that much in preseason. So going into the season, we thought we'd see him as a sub off the bench. Actually, even going into today, when I looked at the 18 that Bob Lilley was working with, I said, well, I don't know. I just don't know if he's going to be ready to go based on what you just said. But obviously, all things being equal, is the Hounds training staff had him. They had his attention for 4 months or so. And Canard Oh Forbes talked to me last week about, he's not the type of guy that, especially in the off season, is just going to go to the gym and he's going to run and just really get into it. But he had to, every day he was connected with the Hounds training staff online, and they were making sure he was, so those are little things. And, then we got Bob Lilley pulling, he's the one orchestrating how this is going to look. He probably told Mensah, look, you've got 60, 65 minutes. I want you to give me everything you have. I want you to be, and that's what he got. And knows he has Mark Forrest in his back pocket too. But it's very interesting because I thought Mensah was impressive with his back to the goal and also holding the ball up a few times, which is interesting because that's Dos Santos' role. So It'll be very interesting when Steven Dos Santos gets healthy, how this plays out and how those two are utilized. That will be very, very interesting to see. But I still see Mensah being the guy playing through the seam, looking to get forward and just being a high energy guy, and Dos Santos playing almost underneath him. And that could work when they're both out there.
Right. I think Mensah was looked at as the Nico Brett replacement, if you will, from last year. Two different types of players and different frames as well. I think Mensah's got a little more verticality to him, as the NBA scouts would say. But, well, you brought up Dos Santos. Mark Lindstrom also out due to injury. Tony Wall's a surprise omission from the 18 for Lilley tonight. I did not have any indication that he was hurt. Maybe he got banged up, because I have a hard time believing if he was healthy that he wasn't going to be playing. So that left Ryan James playing a holding midfield for the first time that I can recall him in a league match. I want to say he played midfield in a U.S. Open Cup match last year, perhaps against the Dayton Dutch Lions. Maybe my memory doesn't serve me there, but I know it was in a U.S. Open Cup match. I'm not sure which one. That James played some midfield, some central midfield. And that's pretty much where he was tonight, in back of Canard Oh Forbes. So that was a different look. Danny Rovira was thrown into action, the second-year pro, on the left flank with Dover on the right side, and Dover ends up getting up into the play. So a lot of the levers and switches that Bob Lilley pulled ended up working out here tonight with a limited roster. And that, for me, is one of the key takeaways too, John. This Hounds team didn't have a lot on the bench. They pretty much blew all their depth on the way to making the substitutions allotted to them, now 5 this year in the USL Championship, like many leagues. But they also got some guys, some experience. You saw Dakota Barnathan get in there. Hunter Ashworth made his pro debut starting at left back for the Hounds alongside Bunky Azil and Skylar Thomas. So we saw some of those new faces that we were wondering how would they fit in, along with Mensah obviously contributing at the offensive end, but overall, and then you had Gomez in net too. So the Hounds had some questions to answer. I don't think that's anything controversial to say with some of the roster turnover. Lilly said as much in his Zoom call with the media this past week that he was just concerned about losing some talent and who was going to fill in those gaps. And again, after a shaky first 20 or 30 minutes, they did find that high press and they found enough rhythm to disrupt Louisville's. And that's what I'm going to take away from this one is that there has been plenty of turnover at Hounds headquarters down there at Highmark Stadium. But this looked a lot like a pretty vintage Hounds performance under Bob Lilly, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did. And it takes, he said last week to me as well, he said that, they're not going to have time. There's going to be a sense of urgency to start off slow, all of that talk. And I think within the game itself today, that he probably felt that and probably stressed that to his players. Like, if you get down, you're going to have to play with a sense of urgency. You're going to have to find it. You're going to have to find a way. But you reeled off a lot of the different names of players that contributed today. And that, that's one of the themes that was an overriding theme during preseason. And even talking to Canard Oh Forbes and, last week, was there's a lot of confidence among the team and the veterans and Lilly, I believe, in the bench. Now, that was a huge issue in the Louisville City playoff loss last year. They didn't go to anybody. And Bob said there's an emphasis that he needs to use his bench. He talked with me at length about the 5 subs and how important that is and how much he likes it. He's pushing for it to stay. But the thing is, like, having those 5 subs and gives those younger players the opportunity. Not only that, he gave the 3 second-year players, he signed them in the offseason. We were all weren't sure who, obviously Robbie Merckx, he wanted to resign. Was Velarde going to be re-signed? Was Rivera going to be re-signed? And he did. He showed a lot of faith in both of them and started them today. And I think that's just it. He's given them confidence and he's got a lot of faith in those guys. And in their second year, they've got to step up. They go to Louisville, win on the road. It's so impressive. And that's just coaching. That's bringing guys along to that point. They're veterans, and they're helping along a Hunter Ashworth who's out there. He struggled there. He had his yellow card in the first half. He got banged around a few times. Another late tackle. Questionably. It just, and that was probably not. You've got Lindstrom, you've got a couple other Bunk Anderson, and you've got these other. Probably what it'll be is a rotation of center back. No clear-cut Joe Greenspan or Toby Adewale. So Skylar Thomas, I thought, was terrific tonight. And, I think Ashworth, for what it's worth, he got in almost a full game, and he needed that. I think 60 plus minutes. And they were, like you said, at the end, Canard Oh Forbes was practically playing on the back line. So they were just whoever they could get back there to kind of defend at the end. But it worked out. This team, now they've got, this is a huge, I think this is huge in the scope of how this plays out. Because now, really, I think there's just a lot.
Well, yeah, I think you look at this game, I think we're going to be looking back on it for several months and saying that was an important 3 points. When they're down 1-0, I'm thinking if they can get out of here with 1 point, it's going to be good. But one thing I did consider, though, John, I want to run this by you, too. Oh, before I move along to the next topic, by the way, Danny Griffin and Lucas Fernandez also made their pro debuts for the Hounds tonight. So kudos to them.
And
plenty of guys
who looked great in the preseason.
Right. And plenty of guys broke their maidens here, and they should be feeling better and more confident about their roles with the club going forward, going into next Saturday's matchup in Philadelphia against Union 2. But do you think maybe Louisville, obviously the palatial Lynn family stadium is the best facility in the league, you would have to say, or right up there with any of them. But at the same time, Slugger Field had a unique home field advantage, and I'm wondering if moving to not a cookie-cutter stadium, but a stadium where every team's going to be comfortable on the surface. There's no artificial turf where the infield would be for the Louisville Bats baseball team. The field is wide enough. It is certainly not lacking for space. Do you think maybe Louisville could lose some of that home field, especially in a year when there aren't going to be a lot of fans in the stands? We saw, 3,000, I think, there out of a 15,000 capacity due to COVID-19. So at least this year, they may have a hard time with replicating what they've had down in Kentucky over the past 5 seasons.
I don't know. I think they are. I think this was just, and you could see Hackworth, at halftime, rattled there. Excuse me. And I just don't think he had an answer for the Hounds high press. And I still think that this is the quality side. I predicted them to win the regular season piece, but in a one-game situation, I mean, I'll think Bob Lilley on the road would be prepared for any playoff match. But I still think they're right there. They're the top class team. They tend to start off slow in past years, and or not even have great regular seasons the last couple of years. So I'm still a big believer in Louisville City. I think that obviously we might, potentially see them down the road. But they've got 3 points in the bag. I just think that the home field advantage. I think Lilley did a phenomenal job of exploiting how to play at Slugger Field in that kind of contained environment, and using the high presser, playing a little different tactically than even what we saw today. So I think Lilley is just such a good coach, and he just had his club prepared today. I don't know. I just see Louisville. Now they're going to be mostly playing Indy and Memphis, I think, and St. Louis. So I still think they're the class of that group, and they'll come out of it. They'll be a very, very tough team to beat. And I think that home field advantage will. They're a tremendous possession team, and they need reps. They need the season to get into it. And I think Lilley took advantage of the fact that they were rusty, and he went with the high press. And I think that's the thing. I think at home, I think with that, if that place is packed with 15,000 people, and the Coopers are going all out, and it's I think that's a different atmosphere as well. But that's how I see. I think this is the quality side, and I think that will be a home field advantage.
Well, on a night we didn't know what to expect, with turnover on the Hounds, with a new stadium for Louisville, with everybody being at least semi-rusty coming off the COVID break, just a couple of weeks to get it wound up and going, depending on what your local state and city governments were allowing and what you're able to do in terms of getting some players in. The Hounds are still missing a couple of players, Albert Gajtka and Patrick Bunk Anderson, restricted as far as commuting, if you want to put it that way, emigrating, if you want to put it another way, to the United States right now. So Pittsburgh's going to try to rectify that, but I don't know if that's going to be resolved by the next time they take the pitch. I mentioned down in Philadelphia on the Union's home pitch, where they had a 2-2 draw against then Bethlehem Steel. Now they're just straight up called the Philly Union 2. So we'll look to have another Pittsburgh postgame next week. John, any closing thoughts, though, on a game that really turned on its ear at the midway point?
Yeah, it's just a great way to start the season, and I would be remiss if I went through this broadcast without congratulating you, Matt, on becoming a father again.
Thank you.
My congratulations to you and Jillian and family, and so that's really something to celebrate. And just congratulations. But I think it was a great way to start the season. I think it's going to be a wonderful ride home for the Riverhounds. The extra travels, it's going to take its toll. It's going to be. I'm really curious to see. I would love to get their feedback about how that whole experience has gone, and it's still going, and until they make it back to Pittsburgh, what that was like. that'd be an interesting storyline that we could kind of catch up on by midweek.
Okay, so look for more coverage, including John's live blog and recap at PittsburghSoccerNow.com. He'll also have this one linked up, and we'll share this on social media too on Pittsburgh Sports Live. And we'll look forward to the Hounds' next matchup. The season has begun. The first Pittsburgh pro team back in action post-COVID shutdown is victorious. Hounds 3, Louisville City 1 from the brand spanking new Lynn Family Stadium. Pittsburgh opened it in style from the visitors' perspective on ESPN2 on what we believe to be their national television debut, at least among the channels that most of us get. It's kind of splitting hairs there, but we'll
leave
it at that.
Old YouTube tapes, but yeah.
Yes, next frontier is ESPN proper. Then they'll really be on the big time. Thank you so much. If you were watching Pittsburgh Postgame for the first time, we haven't had one of these in a while because there haven't been any games. So this is really refreshing to have a post-mortem here, or a post-victory lap with John Krysinsky. I am Matt Gajtka. We'll talk to you next time on Pittsburgh Sports Live for another Pittsburgh Postgame.